drugs were there. I did not put the narcotics there.
First up, we head to Jackson County, Florida, for the trial of Zachary Wester.
Imagine being pulled over for a routine traffic stop, only for a police officer to plant drugs in your car, falsely arrest you, and ruin your life. This isn't a movie plot. It's the terrifying reality for several victims of former Jackson County, Florida Sheriff's Deputy Zachary Wester. Today, we're diving deep into the chilling case of Zachary Wester, a former sheriff's deputy charged with a staggering 67 counts, including racketeering, fabricating evidence, false imprisonment, and possession of controlled substances. Wester was accused of orchestrating a systematic scheme, planting drugs in a dozen vehicles during random traffic stops, all for the sake of career ambition. The prosecution's key weapon? Wester's own body camera footage. Let's break down how this alleged abuse of power unfolded in court.
The arrest caused suspicion internally, and in 2018, Wester was suspended. 3 years later, the case went to trial. He pleaded not guilty to all charges.
This is a case about an abuse of an incredible power, about the abuse of the incredible trust that we all put, and we have to put, in law enforcement in a society.
The prosecution relied on the defendant's own body cam footage to help argue their case.
This is where the rubber meets the road. The charges against Zachary Wester are incredibly severe, particularly racketeering under Florida Statute 895.03, which targets organized criminal activity and enterprises. For a law enforcement officer, a racketeering charge signifies a pattern of corruption, not just isolated incidents. Official misconduct, outlined in Florida Statute 838.022, also plays a huge role here, as it criminalizes a public servant knowingly obtaining a benefit or causing harm by falsifying records or obstructing information. The fact that the prosecution is relying on Wester's own body cam footage is a critical strategic move. It's direct evidence from the source, making it incredibly difficult for the defense to argue against it. This footage essentially becomes a confession from the officer's perspective, capturing his actions firsthand and presenting a damning narrative of a profound abuse of the public trust that society places in law enforcement.
Stephen Van, a convicted felon, had recently gotten out of jail when Wester supposedly found methamphetamine in his car.
Have you ever seen this before? No, what is that? I'm just trying to figure out how that stuff got in your car. You're gonna go to jail today for possession of methamphetamine, okay? Oh man, dude, I'm serious, dude. Anything, what you want me to do, man?
Like the other drivers who testified, Van gave the officer permission to search his car because he claims he had nothing to hide.
And I knew my truck was clean. I knew it was.
While the jury got to watch most of the traffic stops, some recordings had mysteriously disappeared.
This segment highlights two crucial legal points. First, Stephen Van's statement about knowing his truck was clean and giving consent speaks to the Fourth Amendment, which protects citizens from unreasonable searches and seizures. One of the key exceptions to the warrant requirement is voluntary consent. However, if that consent is based on a false premise, i.e. an officer planning to plant evidence, it undermines the voluntariness and legality of the search entirely. Second, the revelation that some recordings had mysteriously disappeared is a massive red flag for spoliation of evidence. This is when evidence relevant to a legal proceeding is intentionally or negligently destroyed or altered. In a criminal case, especially one involving body cam footage, the intentional deletion of evidence by an officer can lead to severe inferences against the officer, suggesting that the footage was incriminating and deliberately removed to obstruct justice. This would strongly support charges like fabricating evidence under Florida Statute 918.13, which makes it unlawful to falsify or destroy evidence when an investigation is pending.
Prosecution's case, especially when it came to Theresa Odom.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
At first, the officer's polite, even playful.
Anything in the vehicle I need to be concerned about? Bombs, hand grenades, rocket launchers? Okay.
While Odom stands behind the vehicle, Wester begins his search.
This is the pivotal moment the prosecution has been building towards. The act of Wester preparing to put his gloves on, and crucially, having a small item in his left hand that prosecutors argue is a palmed bag of meth, is direct visual evidence supporting the charge of fabricating evidence. This isn't circumstantial. It's a clear, observable action, captured on video, allowing the jury to witness the alleged crime in real time. This visual proof is immensely powerful in court, directly addressing Florida Statute 918.13, which prohibits tampering with or fabricating physical evidence. The prosecution's theory is that Wester is essentially creating probable cause, where none existed, thereby justifying a false arrest and further charges against the unsuspecting driver. This smoking gun footage dramatically strengthens the state's case against him.
How about this, though?
That is not mine. No, sir.
Okay.
Here we see the immediate aftermath of the alleged evidence planting and the victim's unequivocal denial. Theresa Odom's firm "that is not mine, no sir" directly contradicts Wester's implied assertion that the drugs belong to her. This exchange is critical for establishing the mens rea, or criminal intent element of the charges against Wester. The prosecution would argue that Wester knew the drugs weren't Odom's, yet proceeded with the false discovery and subsequent arrest. This deliberate act of accusing an innocent person of a crime they did not commit is central to charges like fabricating evidence and false imprisonment, which under Florida Statute 787.02 involves unlawfully confining or restraining someone without legal authority and against their will. The video directly shows the conflict, and when combined with the earlier footage of Wester's allegedly palming the drugs, it forms a compelling narrative for the jury.
As far as motive, the prosecution claims the 28-year-old officer was ambitious and wanted to move to narcotics as quickly as possible. Wester testified he never planted any drugs.
The drugs were there. I did not put the narcotics there.
And after 5 days and several witnesses, the jury was asked to render a verdict. If Wester's found guilty on all charges, he could spend the rest of his life behind bars.
In July 2021, former Jackson County Sheriff's Deputy Zachary Wester was sentenced to 12 years and 6 months in state prison after being convicted on 19 of 67 charges, including racketeering, official misconduct, fabricating evidence, perjury, false imprisonment, and possession of controlled substances. Prosecutors had sought a 15-year sentence for what they called an egregious breach of public trust. Wester's crimes led to charges being dropped in nearly 120 other cases, where he was the arresting officer, highlighting the devastating ripple effect of his corruption. While Wester began serving his sentence in Colorado for his safety, there's been a significant development. In November 2024, a Florida appeals court threw out his racketeering conviction. The court ruled that the state's racketeering statute typically requires proof of at least 2 people being involved in a criminal enterprise, and in Wester's case, he was found to have acted alone in planting the drugs. This decision could potentially reduce his prison sentence by up to 5 years, a significant change that underscores the complexities and ongoing legal battles, even after a verdict is rendered. The appeals court urged the Florida Supreme Court to review its decision, meaning this legal saga may not be fully concluded.